Hello, hello, welcome to Mindset to Results. And our guest today is Gary Parsons. He has 15 years of business experience and now he is leadership and mental health advocate and also public speaker. Welcome, Gary.
Hello, how are you doing? Good to be here.
Great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your story that people who listen to us know about you, and then let's speak about leadership and mental health.
Yeah, crikey, where do I start? That's a really good question to ask me. Where do I start? And short as well. So do interrupt me if I go on too long. But as you've alluded to, I have been in business for 15 years. I started a company with a friend of mine back in 2009 in a recession, which was the best but craziest thing that I ever did. And I've learned a lot over that time, especially with the many different occurrences that have happened in the economy and lots of different things that have gone on. But yeah, I like to talk about my personal story, and I think that is really important because whilst I have been in business for 15 years, when I was 18 or just before I was 18, I woke up one morning to find that my face was paralyzed. I had something called Bell's palsy. It's not very well known, although it's probably the most common cause of facial paralysis. And unfortunately, I was one of those people that didn't recover from it. And a huge proportion, I can't remember the figures off my head, but I think it's like something like 79% of people fully recover. Unfortunately, I was one of those people that didn't. And I've always been quite entrepreneurial. I've used to sell computers, and I'm sure we'll get into it. I used to sell computers to my teachers. I used to design business cards and all the graphics for my next door neighbor's hair salon. And I used to be really entrepreneurial. So at that age, when I was 18, I felt like my life had stopped. And for something that was fairly physical, actually, it was hugely emotional and a big change for me. But as you just said there, I've been in business for I'm 41 now, and I'll let you compliment me later. But yes, I'm 41 now, and I've spent the last 2 decades or more not smiling and hiding my smile and hiding my story of that Bell's palsy, whilst facing the world of business. And yeah, in short, you said there, so in business for 15 years, we've grown to many millions pounds of turnover that we have a business as a business. We have a huge team here in the UK. Now that doubled in size in 2022, and we also operate outside of the UK. So one of the clients that we work with is based in Singapore. So yeah, a hugely successful business. But I think hopefully your viewers and your listeners will realize very quickly that I'm quite grounded with that. I have to pinch myself whenever I talk about how successful that business is because I do forget how successful it is because I've had all of those battles. But yeah, it's been a interesting 15 years for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Gary. What helped you to keep going? What helped you not to get into that victim state that all life is finished, what I can do now, I cannot do anything, like so many different thoughts are right raised up. And when we find ourselves in this situation, sometimes we even don't want to accept that it is reality. Yes, we just want to think that it is not real, like it is just a dream and I wake up and everything will be different. So tell me what was going in your head that time and how you could overcome those negative thoughts and set yourself to success and start doing things which were right to do and took your company to these results?
That's a good question. I don't know if I did it in the right way, but when, like I say, I was 2 months off my 18th birthday when I experienced Bell's palsy, when I woke up with my face paralyzed. I spent 15 years of my, sorry, 5 years, should I say, 5 years from that moment, looking in the mirror every day, dealing with the trauma that I'd gone through, and I was in tears every day. I'm not afraid to talk about that. And every day I would look in that mirror, I would look back at a person I didn't recognize, someone's the identity that I'd lost. I couldn't recognize that person in the mirror. So for every day for 5 years, I would be in tears, and I was trying to deal with that trauma. What got me through those 5 years, I would say, is a really good support system. Uh, Absolutely my mum. So my mum is a single parent. I'm an only child. She is my best friend. She supported me through that. She helped me understand that I still was a really good person on the inside. And just because I hated the person on the outside didn't mean that I was any different. So she worked with me, she encouraged me. I remember one day, and a really lovely story to tell you, is she took me to the physio department at the local hospital. And I struggled. I didn't leave the house for 3 months. So yeah, the whole like 13 weeks of not leaving the house whatsoever, apart from going to medical appointments. And what she used to do is we used to go to the hospital. We then would drive to the local retail park where I worked at what isn't around now, but a very famous camera shop, Dixon's. I think they're still in airports. And my mum said to me, "Do you want to come in? Do you want to come into the store?" It was quiet. It was a early morning, midweek, weekends, whenever it was. And she said, "Do you want to come in and come and see everybody? We'll stay there 5 minutes and then we'll come back out." And more often than not, I would say no. But it was just that encouragement really to say, "Do you want to?" She let me control the situation, but she gave me that support to encourage me. I didn't go in. She would get people to come round and see me. I'd try and hide, but what she did is she got, I remember Joanne that worked with me. She came round to come and see me at home. And I think over those years, I just, I built that confidence again, really, just to go out. But the one thing I didn't find the right thing, I didn't, it wasn't the right thing to do ultimately was I, the only way I could move forward, and I talk about this a lot because I do regret it in some senses, but I do also see why it was the right thing to do at the time for me. And the only way I could move forward after that 5 year period was to do all the things that we shouldn't say now. So I said all of those phrases like "man up" and "give yourself a break" and toughen yourself up. So I know there were the wrong things to say to myself, but I forced myself just to move forward. And wrongly, I don't know whether I did this wrongly or not, and I'm still trying to figure this out. I got all of those bad feelings, all of those bad thoughts, and metaphorically put them in a big chest and threw them away in a lake, and then just moved forward. But my only coping mechanism was to stop smiling. And it sounds really sad, but I wanted to stop smiling because whenever I did smile, it revealed my smile was a bit too much over here and not enough on this side. And people would ask me questions. And I was still dealing with it myself. And I've had to deal with it for 20 years. I've only been having these conversations for 3 years. And for 2 decades, the way I got through life was to wear a mask, to wear some armor. And my armor really was to not smile and hide it from people. But yeah, that again, I don't know if that was right or wrong. What I didn't do is I didn't have any psychological support. Nobody helped me, and in my own head, what do they call it? Therapy from the neck up. I never had any of that, and I really wish that I had. I wish that I'd worked with somebody to normalize those feelings and help me through it. But yeah, in answer to your question, what I did do was just make sure that I had some really loving relationships and really loving support systems around me. And when I did have bad days, I fell back onto those, and those people reminded me of how far I'd got and how much I'd moved forward because I was so focused on the moment. And I've taken that through to business. I'm doing that now when I have a bad week or a bad day, or things don't go as fast as I want it to, I remind myself of how well I've done, and I have to convince myself and have to remind myself of how well and successful the company is. So I think there's some really transferable skills that I've learned from my experience of Bell's palsy and that adversity to what I now do in business.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Gary. What does your company do?
Well, yeah, good question. So the 15 years, I've stepped back from it now, and in April, I'll come onto that in a moment. So I'm now I'm now a non-executive director of that business. I still own half of it, but I don't get involved in it. I just work with the directors to advise them and make sure that my baby that I created 15 years ago is growing and being successful. So yeah, what does it do? So it's a people consultancy. We started off initially, my background was in recruitment, and we realized, particularly in the recession in 2009, that companies didn't want they were losing employees and staff across their business. They wanted somebody that could consult with them. So we very consciously called ourselves Talk Staff, which is a play on words, really. It was staff consultancy, people consultancy, and that's what we've grown into today. So the business now is huge. Like I say, we operate across the UK and some international work, and we and they, if that's the right word, still getting used to that terminology. They ultimately work with companies to look at the strategic value in people. And what we say to them is, if you focus on your people and become more people focused, then actually you have a very successful business. And so many companies don't value the people financially in that business. So if you look after those employees, if you coach them, if you lead them in the right way, if you develop them in the right way, and I don't mean put them on a training program, I mean really develop them. And we have a team where our core team are organizational psychologists. So it is their job and their skill and expertise to work with teams to understand behavior change and culture change. So that taught me a lot about the world of business and people. And as of April this year, I've stepped back from that company. Like I say, I still own part of it. And what I now do is I go out there and deal with something that I've struggled with in business. And I go out there and I talk about my own mental health challenges, the times when I've been extremely successful and I've been stood on stage accepting an award. My co-directors in tears behind me because they're so happy, but me stood on stage giving an award speech and desperately trying to not think about what was going on in my own head, which at the time was all these negative thoughts, but particularly was my smile, hoping that people in the room wouldn't look at me and go, "What's wrong with him? What's wrong with his smile? What's happened in his life to cause that?" And I couldn't be present on stage and accept an award and enjoy the moment because I was too focused on what was going on in my own head. And that's a story that I never felt like I could talk about because, and I still think it's there and it's still a stigma that we need to break. And I'm on a mission to do that through my advocacy work. Is that stigma at 7 or 8 years ago when I wanted to tell that story, I felt like it would be met with investors that would say, "I'm not going to invest in Gary's company because if I do, then the company would be weak, the company might fail." But what they didn't recognize was what I was going through was really normal, and the roller coaster of business was absolutely normal. And I found that since that the statistics that I've read are saying 72% of leaders, of founders of businesses, experience what I experienced, which was just challenges on our mental health. So yeah, so the work that I do now is ultimately having these conversations, not being scared to talk about the days that I had severe depression. I'm really lucky to say I've never tried to take my own life, but there are many people out there that have, and I'm helping them go out there and also tell their own story as well, because we need to normalize it. We need to reduce, sadly, and a bit of a trigger warning around suicide, but we need to reduce the number of people that feel like the only option is to take their own life, because there's such a huge community out there and that I work with that are more than happy to embrace those people and support them along their way. And I think it's
Yes.
working.
Yeah, thank you so much for what you do. And I would like to acknowledge you that you went through so much, and you could win. The biggest victory is to win over yourself, right? So
Yeah.
you won over yourself, and you didn't let that situation which happened with you physically affect your ability to create success in long term. Yes, of course, as you said, initially it took time, but you could overcome that and you decided to become successful, right? And when you decided to become successful, you could put your attention to create your success in your business instead of just being trapped in those negative thoughts about your physical appearance.
Yeah. And do you know, one of the techniques that I've learned over the years, and I had it recently, I entered a competition and I didn't win it, but the feedback that I had from that competition was so amazing. The judges said to me I probably didn't win on a technicality because it was to do with speaking, as you said, I'm a public speaker. I go out there and talk about my own story to inspire others and hopefully create more people that are advocates of leadership mental health, because I thoroughly believe that mental health in business starts from the top down and not the bottom up. And if we can get the leaders to recognize their own challenges and be more honest about that, like I say, because it is very normal, then they can be more compassionate, more empathetic leaders for the people in their business. And I go out there and I talk about it. And I remember that one of the judges said to me, Gary, that was amazing. And I said, well, why didn't I win? And she said, you absolutely could have won, but today wasn't your day. And I sat down and I got a little bit upset. I don't deal with rejection very well. And I sat down and thought, why didn't I win? And whilst there was another section of that evening where people were stood on stage that were far more experienced than me, that have spoken at companies across 20 different countries. And I was half listening to them and half trying to do it out of my own head. And one of the things that I did is I got my phone out, which we've all got these days. We didn't have phones readily available when I was 18, but I got my phone out and I wrote a positivity log. And I remembered everybody in that half an hour break that we had, where we got drinks and the judges went to go deliberate, is that the right word? And I said, I need to write all of these things down on my phone, and I've still got it now. And the comments were, you should have won." Somebody said that to me. I felt yours was the best one. You should have won. I had some people say, "Wow, I've never met you before, and I absolutely loved everything you talk about." And there was other people that said, "I connected with what you were talking about." There was other people said they were in tears, which I think was good. I don't want to make anyone cry, but they connected with me on an emotional level. And I
Mhm.
looked at it and thought, and you just said it there, is I have won. I've won. Many people in this room have absolutely got what I'm talking about, and I've inspired people and I've connected with people. And even now, when I go out there and I have conversations, and I did a presentation recently for a huge company. It was an internal staff meeting, and they in the chat, and I love having these conversations because you get to see that instant feedback, because we always get that little bit of stage anxiety even when we're going on there. We do it all the time, and just seeing that instant feedback. And quite a few people have approached me privately from that company and thanked me for what I've done and shared with me very honestly what's happened to them. And that's when I know I'm doing a good job. It went off then.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's when I know that I'm doing a good job ultimately, is because people come to me and say, that absolutely connects with me, you've inspired me, and they look more powerful. And that for me is a really good job. But yeah, certainly positivity logs, log down when you're in that moment when you really need it, dig deep and try to write down all the positive comments that you've had. in the last half an hour over the last week, whenever it's been, and then very quickly you can realize how successful you are.
Yes, it is important to acknowledge yourself and win and celebrate the wins. Yes,
Mm.
even small wins, but we have to celebrate because it helps to have that self confidence, to have that self esteem, because we know that something that we do is really matters, something that we do changes people's life, even if it is one person and we help them in the difficult situation, it is always the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to expand on that point as well is we we define success and failure, and I talk a lot about this generally. So hopefully no one's listened to this that's heard me say it many a times. But we define success and failure as very final things. And you see it with athletes when they say they've won that bronze medal in the Olympics and they retire at 25 or 30 years old. But when they do retire, they say, what do I do now? I've been successful, or I didn't win that medal and I've now retired. And they go, oh, I failed. And that, and every day you can be successful, and every day you might fail. Maybe not every day, but certainly we shouldn't define that success and failure in the way that we do. And I hope that the day that I finally leave this earth, that the thing that's said about me in my eulogy, or the thing that's said about me on my gravestone in the paper that's given out on the day, isn't just Gary did this one thing. I hope that they will talk about what my mission has been in life. Got a little bit emotional then. What my mission has been in life, and how I've made a difference to other people, and the success that I've made, whether it's been on one day or whether it's been over many years, and and I also want them to talk about where I haven't been successful, the challenges that I've had in life, because both are extremely normal. So yeah, I think we can makes it feels like cheating really, but I think we can win any race that we have, and we can be successful in anything we do. So you're quite right. We do win. We're winning all the time.
Yes, and I like your attitude about the failure, because the failure is the part of success and we should have right attitude. We shouldn't be afraid of failure because no, nothing is perfect and we are not perfect, and there is nobody who achieved the big success who didn't fail, right? Because every time we fail, it is not about the failure itself, but it is about learning the lesson and get up again and do it different way, do it anyway, but learn the lessons and improve, change the perception, do it different, and if we don't stop we will succeed.
Absolutely. And there's one, and I can't remember how many times it is now. So some research and homework for people listening is I was reading about James Dyson, who invented the Dyson vacuum, and I can't remember if I think it was something like it was either hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times that he failed. I even want to say thousands of times that he failed. But look how successful that company is now. Look how successful he is. He's gone on to be I know I've got two Dysons in my house. It's not an advert for Dyson, but like I know so many people that have one, and he revolutionized an industry that had been dominated by. We talk about Hoovers, but that's the brand name, isn't it? So, and a conscious choice to talk about using the word vacuum. But Hoover was that name across so many brands, and he came in and took that away from them and revolutionized the way that we look at vacuum cleaners. And I'm going to find it after this call, because it was hundreds. I feel like it was like 500 or 600 times. I'll find it at some point. And yeah, look how successful he was in the end. But I think that comes with a message of perseverance, and also setting your expectations that you aren't going to win and be successful instantly. You might be in, it's quite iterative. So you might be successful at achieving one little bit. And I'm sure he might say, as part of his vacuum cleaner, he might say that it was successful by making that one little bit work. And then he had to work on the other 100 parts of it. But yeah, I think we just need to remember that it's a journey. and success doesn't happen at that level overnight. Um, and we can chase for it. It keeps us going, really, doesn't it? The pressure keeps us going and keeps us excited as ambitious entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I like this saying that winners never quit and quitters never win, right? So if you want to be successful, just decide that you will get there. Decide what you really want, and just see that this is already done in future, and get detached to it. Don't like set the plan when you want this goal, like in 6 months, in 1 year. Just have it clear when you want it to be achieved, and see is already done, and then detach from that time. Just do every day whatever it takes, with the feeling that it is already there. It is like Amazon. We make the
Mm,
order, and we know that it will come. Yeah, we don't know exactly when it will come, because they can bring any time, but we know that it is come. We don't call every minute Amazon and ask when you will bring my parcel. Yes, we know
yes.
that it is already there, it is on the way. So this
Mm,
is a very good attitude to success, and just going every day doing what it takes. If it's something fails, no problem. You just wake up and get up and do again better way. And
yeah.
if you don't quit, you are guaranteed that you are succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to bring the mental health conversation into this as well, is that sometimes we beat ourselves up because we are so ambitious and we want to win. And especially as entrepreneurs, I'm a serial entrepreneur now. I've got lots of different businesses that I invest in or and non-exec of, and I see people really beat themselves up over it. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and I said, "Oh, you're a little bit like Amazon," and he said, "Oh no, we will be Amazon. We will take over what Amazon does." Now, this is
Mhm.
a person that has had some real mental health challenges. And I mean, just normal things. Unfortunately, we will experience, like me, we will experience things that are so familiar to us in our lives that they will change us. They'll change the way that we connect with people, that we connect with teams, organizations. And that might be the loss of a loved one. It might be something physical that happens to us, and we've seen people that lose limbs or something physically changes about them. It might be that they develop a condition that means that they can no longer play their favorite sport. It might be that they have had uh, a terminal diagnosis of something. Things happen in our lives, and yes, hugely traumatic, and absolutely we need to be able to deal with those. But you can still be successful. You can still win. And I encourage anybody that, particularly in the face of adversity, I feel like there are so many people that I speak to that are stronger because of what they've gone through versus people that haven't gone through much at all. And I feel, in a very messed up way, I feel quite lucky that it happened to me at the time when I did, because it kicked me down, but it really accelerated my journey going forward and made me just think about what's important to me in life. So yeah, I think that's the other thing as well, is winning and driving things forward. Absolutely, that's a great mindset to have, but don't let it defeat you when you have a bad week, when you lose somebody that's close to you, when you have a breakup, something, whatever it might be. We all experience things in our lives, and it's really important just to take a rest and reset and get back onto it, because if you keep pushing, you won't achieve that goal that you're working towards. You need to step back and rest and prioritize your own mental health and well-being, because that's what everybody else would do, regardless whether you're a leader, regardless whether you're an employee, whether you work for yourself. You need to step back and just prioritize yourself just for a little bit, and humor me a little bit, and just step back for a small amount of time and look after yourself, because then you can take on the world.
Yes, exactly. I like this song that what doesn't kill us make us stronger.
I do. I might have that as my. I'm not into boxing, but that would be my boxing match song when I got on there. Although it might be taken literally when I go into boxing ring, because it might kill me. But yeah, but absolutely, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, so this is always depends on us what we choose, who we choose to be, what we choose to think, what we choose to decide. Yes, we can choose to be victim and just feel helpless, or in the same situation we could think that this happened for the reason so I can be stronger, I can help more people, maybe even people who are in the same situation as me. I got over that situation and now I can help so many people. Yes, I can empower them, and we always can decide who we want to be.
Mm.
And thank you so much, Gary, for this amazing conversation and being wonderful guest for our podcast. And I'm looking to meet you again for our further episodes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Time flies by when you're having fun. So yeah, thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
You're most welcome.